Something about this story has made a lot of people stop and ask questions, not because of partisan talking points, but because of how long it may have taken for key details to come to light. This week, Senator John Kennedy read a memo into the public record that is now circulating widely online. And while the claims are serious, what's drawing attention is something else entirely: why this issue stayed quiet for so long. Let's start with the facts that are not in dispute. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana used his platform to reference a memo related to alleged welfare fraud in Minnesota. He didn't present it as a final verdict. He didn't claim guilt had already been proven. What he did was highlight information that, according to him, raises concerns about oversight, accountability, and transparency. That distinction matters, especially in a political climate where accusations often move faster than evidence. The allegations being discussed online are tied to a long-running investigation in Minnesota involving misuse of public funds connected to food and welfare programs. Some reports reference the Feeding Our Future case, a real investigation that has already resulted in indictments and convictions. According to publicly available court records, the fraud involved tens of millions of dollars in federal funds meant to feed children during the pandemic. That part is not speculation. Federal prosecutors have already pursued charges in that case. Where debate begins is around scope, oversight, and political response. Online discussions frequently cite figures approaching or exceeding hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes even higher. It's important to be careful here. Not every number circulating online has been confirmed by a final court ruling. But even the lower, verified figures represent one of the largest food program fraud cases in U.S. history. From a conservative perspective, that raises a straightforward question: how did this go on for so long without being stopped? This is where Senator Kennedy's remarks resonate with many GOP voters. The concern isn't only about criminals committing fraud. That happens in every system. The deeper concern is about government oversight failing repeatedly. Conservatives have long argued that large federal programs without strict accountability are vulnerable to abuse. This case appears to reinforce that argument. And when oversight fails, taxpayers pay. The Minnesota has been governed by Democrats at the state level for years. That alone doesn't prove anything, but it does shape responsibility. When fraud reaches this scale, voters expect questions like, who was responsible for monitoring the funds? When were warning signs first raised? Why weren't they acted on sooner? Those questions are legitimate, regardless of party. Some critics argue that officials may have been reluctant to act quickly because of political sensitivities. Minnesota's Somali community has been referenced frequently in discussions of this case. That creates an understandable fear of being accused of bias or profiling. But conservatives argue that avoiding enforcement for political comfort creates a different problem: unequal application of the law. In a system governed by rules, enforcement must be neutral and consistent. It's important to be clear. The memo Senator Kennedy referenced is not a conviction. It is not a final judicial ruling. What it represents is a snapshot of concerns raised within government channels. From a GOP standpoint, reading it publicly is about transparency, forcing uncomfortable questions into the open rather than keeping them behind closed doors. The reason this story gained traction online isn't just partisan outrage. It taps into long-standing conservative frustrations. Government programs growing too large to manage accountability, arriving only after massive losses. Officials appearing more concerned with optics than enforcement. Whether one agrees or disagrees, those themes resonate with a large audience. Another reason this story is circulating is perception. Many conservative viewers feel that similar cases receive far less coverage when they don't fit a preferred narrative. That doesn't mean mainstream outlets are intentionally hiding facts, but it does fuel distrust. When stories eventually break through alternative media first, skepticism toward traditional outlets grows. Let's separate what is known from what is alleged. Federal prosecutors have charged and convicted individuals in the Feeding Our Future case. Tens of millions of dollars were misused. Oversight failures occurred. What has not yet been proven: that specific politicians personally approved fraud, that any memo establishes criminal intent by lawmakers, that all claims circulating online are accurate. Making that distinction keeps the discussion credible. From a GOP perspective, this case isn't just about Minnesota. It's about what happens when emergency programs are rushed, safeguards are loosened, Oversight is delayed, politics complicate enforcement. Conservatives argue that these conditions exist across multiple federal programs. Minnesota may simply be where the cracks became visible first. The takeaway many conservatives draw isn't one party bad, one party good. It's this: large government programs require strict oversight, or they will be abused. That belief sits at the heart of GOP skepticism toward expansive federal spending. Even if no new charges emerge, the questions raised won't disappear. Taxpayers will want answers. Lawmakers will demand accountability. And future funding decisions will be influenced by cases like this. Once trust is shaken, rebuilding it takes time. Senator John Kennedy didn't claim to deliver a final verdict. What he did was spotlight a case that many Americans believe deserves closer scrutiny. For conservatives, this story reinforces long-standing concerns about accountability, transparency, and the cost of government failure. And regardless of where the facts ultimately land, those questions are unlikely to fade anytime soon.